in July. And we're all excited to be here with John and Sandy and Louise and Julie and Gail and I. And then we've got Dina and Bob and Reverend Steve and Bill online with us. So that's great. And it's a good day to be in Blairsville. It was sunny. Now it's thinking about getting cloudy, but that's okay. We're going to start today with the music Dina has chosen is You Decide.
That's right. That's a Janice Stanfield song. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Only imperfection, or do you see beauty? Do you judge each feature, find every flaw? Can you love your uniqueness, stand back in awe? You get to be what you choose to see. Make up your mind carefully. You decide. You decide. Every day. You get to be what you choose to see. Make up your mind carefully. You decide. You decide. Every day. Make up your mind. You decide.
Thank you, Dina. That was lovely. Now we come to our daily word. Oops, gotta have some glasses here. And the word is journey. My life's journey begins and ends in the heart of God. I feel excitement at the beginning of a journey, thinking about the adventures, the beautiful sights, and the fascinating people I will find at my journey's end. Even as I look forward to reaching my destination, however, I remain alert, open to the adventures and insights that await discovery along the way. My faith tells me that my spiritual journey began in the heart of God long before my human birth. In childhood, I looked outward, longing for the adventures that would become waypoints on my journey to maturity. Now I journey inward, longing for the spiritual home I never really left. I am learning that even in the most ordinary day can become an opportunity to realize that the heart of God is present everywhere. And from Psalm 121, the Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. The journey to the heart of God. How lovely. Dina?
Thank you. Congregational song this evening is Stand My Ground. I've put the lyrics up in the chat box. I've done this song here before, and it's pretty easy, so I'm not going to introduce it again today. I'm just going to trust that you're going to catch right on to it. Ain't gonna let nothing turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nothing turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking up
welcome. Thank you. And now is when we light the candle that we hope you can see, but you probably can't. If I get it lit, I can show it to you. Whoops, sparkles. There, see, candle. It is lit. And we know that the candle symbolizes the presence, the power, and the joy of God that is within us every moment, with every breath, right in the heart of God. We are never alone in the Christ light, and we are not dependent upon the light of a simple candle, for the light shines within and through each one of us to the glory of God, and it is good. Amen. And now we have our affirmation for this month. I'll say it once and invite you to join me. I am not afraid to ask God for help because we all need help. Together, I am not afraid to ask God
for help
because we all need help. And it is good. All right, now we have Stepping Stones.
That's right. Stepping Stones is another Janice Stanfield song.
Then we're done.
I'm turning my stumbling blocks to stepping stones. Turning my stumbling blocks to stepping stones. I'm turning my stumbling blocks to stepping stones. Stepping stones. Stepping stones. I'm turning my trials into proving grounds. Turning my trials into proving grounds. I'm turning my trials into proving grounds. Stepping stones, stepping stones. I'm turning my problems into challenges. Turning my problems into challenges. I'm turning my problems into challenges. Stepping stones, stepping stones. I'm turning my somedays into someday soon. Turning my somedays into someday soon. I'm turning my problems into challenges. Turning my trials into proving grounds. I'm turning my stumbling blocks to stepping stones. Stepping stones. Stepping stones. Stepping stones. Stepping stones.
Thank you, Dina. And John, you're on now.
I am on, and I'm happy to be on, happy to be up here in Blairsville. Sandy and I came up for lunch and had a wonderful meal at Rib Country. Oh man, that's great. And then afternoon with Bob and Louise, man, that's great too. Now at Reverend Claudia's, and we are just so thrilled to be with you. And I'm thinking about the days when I was in school and we were required to memorize poetry. I don't know if students are required to do that anymore. And I remember being in school in Georgia, we had to memorize the Song of the Chattahoochee. Any of you remember the Song of the Chattahoochee? Out of the hills of Habersham, down the valleys of Hall, I hurry amain to reach the plain, run the rapids, leap the fall. So I can still remember that. I can still remember one from French class. But one of the poems that has stayed with me and inspired me is Invictus by William Ernest Henley, a very important formative part of my life. And I don't know if they think memorizing poetry is important anymore, but when one memorizes something that stays with them for 60 years, I mean, that's an amazing thing. And so I'm glad I had to do it. I don't know that I liked doing it then, but I was glad now that I did. William Ernest Henley. We're going to actually save that poem to close out my talk. But Invictus literally means unconquered or invincible. Does anybody need to remember that today or be reminded of that, that we are invincible, unconquered, unconquerable? And so I asked myself, well, who was William Henley? He was an English writer. He was born in 1849 and died in 1903. Didn't have a very long life. Perhaps at that time, living that length of time might have been a long time, but he suffered from a number of ailments, primarily tuberculosis. He had to have a leg amputated. He spent a lot of time in the hospital. And some of his writings are considered the writings from the hospital years. And in fact, Invictus was written during the hospital years. He was in isolation, battling tuberculosis. His life was an inspiration to other writers, including Robert Louis Stevenson. I want to talk for just a minute about one of my personal heroines, Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity. She was born about the same time, a little bit before, actually, William Henley, and she lived much longer. She, too, was stricken with tuberculosis. In those days, it was believed that it was an inherited disease. They didn't understand the concept of a communicable disease. So if it was in a family, there was a likelihood others in the family would also suffer from that. But she overcame that malady after hearing a lecture by a traveling itinerant metaphysical preacher, E.B. Weeks. And during that lecture, he stated, "You are a child of God, therefore you do not inherit sickness." As I said, the belief among the medical world, such as it was that it was an inherited sickness. And she thought, well, in this family, we get it, I've gotten it. And she believed that. It was a little bit later that she learned the power of belief, the power of thought. But something was triggered in her consciousness that said, I don't have to die from this in 6 months, as the doctors had told her. She changed herself, changed her thinking, changed her concept of herself, perhaps even changed her concept or her God thought, and recovered. And she used that suffering time, that illness, to do something great for herself and for the world. We're here today because of what she did. It was later that her husband, Charles, caught the vision. He didn't catch it right away. He thought, just another traveling preacher, so what? But as he began to see changes in her, he wondered, what are you doing? You're doing something different. What's going on here? So he was skeptical, sort of a scientific mind. And when he was ready, she shared that. I wonder if any of you have ever tried to share these ideas with somebody who's not ready. You ever done that? I mean, we caught fire with this, and I remember in college when I felt a call to be a Unity minister, so I was going to finish my degree and then go to ministerial school. And I was telling all my friends, you can change your life by changing your thinking. Come with me on this journey. And most of them said, huh? They didn't quite get it. They didn't quite get it. And the more excitedly I tried to convince them of the truth that I knew, the more they thought, he's lost it. In fact, some of my friends today, when I see them at reunions, will say, we still think you made a mistake. You should have been a football coach. But that's another story. So Myrtle Fillmore had great suffering, was preparing to die. and made a choice not to. And that led to the founding of this unity movement, which has changed and healed and prospered and blessed millions of people around the world because of that, because of that. I want to tell you another heroine of mine, Martha Smock. I'm guessing most of you don't know who Martha Smock was, but she was the editor of Daily Word magazine for, I think, about 50 years or more. A magnificent, magnificent woman, one of the greatest writers in Unity's history, not complicated, but ideas like, whatever your challenge, meet it with faith. And people decided to do that. Their lives were changed. Martha Smock also overcame tuberculosis. I want to tell you a personal story about Martha Smock. I was invited back to Unity Village to be the understudy to the director of Silent Unity, who is James Dillett Freeman, the wonderful Jim Freeman. And when he was ready to hand over the reins to the worldwide prayer ministry to me, and under his management was Martha Smock. And one of the things he said to me, John, what if you forget nothing else, I tell you, remember this, don't mess with Martha. Whatever Martha wants, Martha gets. And I made a great error with Martha. Martha was the editor of Daily Word magazine, and we had an editor-in-chief at Unity Village. And in a sense, budget-wise, Martha came under him. But management-wise, she came under me. And he, the editor, came to me and said, John, Martha never spends much money, but I think she should have her own budget, and you should oversee that. I said, okay. But I didn't want to mess with Martha. So I had my assistant prepare a budget for Martha. Martha found out that my assistant had prepared her budget. Now, she hasn't prepared a budget in 45 years or so. And she came into my office and she was loaded for bear. And there was only one thing I could do. And that was to say, Martha, I was wrong. You were right. And I apologize. And she softened and we hugged. And it was great for the rest of the time that she was there. And I was thinking, dodge that bullet. But you see, she was a great overcomer and a person of magnificent faith. The writings were never complicated theology. They were positive. They were helpful. They were healing. Another great unity leader was the Reverend Dorothy Pearson. You know, we sort of think of Myrtle Fillmore as the mother of unity, but her successor was Dorothy Pearson, a unity minister for 50 years, much loved in the unity movement and a great and powerful healer. But again, Dorothy had suffered from tuberculosis and she overcame that. I don't know what this trend is about great spiritual leaders that have suffered from tuberculosis, but I have to tell you another one. The Reverend Dr. Barbara King. If you're from Atlanta, you know she was really the dean of metaphysics in the Atlanta area. She studied unity. She went to Unity Church of Atlanta. She considered the minister there her minister. And she had a little study group that began in the West End in Atlanta. And it got so large, she couldn't take time off to go to ministerial school. So by golly, she started her own ministerial school. And many ministers in unity and outside of it had come through her ministerial school. And I remember her as really the first person of color to preach at Unity Church of Atlanta. Now, I have to tell you, at that time, the minister in Atlanta was beloved, Jay Dishman. But there was a rule in that church is you do not go over 12 o'clock noon in your sermon because we want a chance to get out and get to the restaurants and the cafeterias in time for lunch. So, Jay, first rule, don't go past noon. Well, when Barbara spoke, she would still be going at 12:30 and people were wanting more. So she was a magnificent teacher. She was about 6'5", 6'6". She was a chief, an honorary chief of one of the tribes in Africa. And she too had an overcoming of tuberculosis. Mm-hmm. Now, this is not a lesson about how to overcome tuberculosis. It is broader than that. It's about how to overcome life's most difficult challenges. And all of those in those days were facing death. They stared it down and they said, this is not your time. I have much more to do. One of my partner Sandy's great teachers also has the name Sandy, a man, Sandy Wilder, and he is the founder of Educare, the Unlearning Institute. I love that because I think the challenge most of us have in life is not that we weren't good students and we didn't learn too well. It is we did learn too well the wrong things. And we've carried them with them. We've held them close to our heart. This is what we believe and this is the truth. And what we have to do is unlearn the things we learned that were wrong. Any of you have that challenge in life? I mean, I was a good student. For heaven's sakes, I was a valedictorian of my high school. And I knew at 18 all the truths there were to know in the world. And at 18 and a half, I came crashing down and realized I didn't know nothing about nothing, with apologies to my English teacher. I didn't know anything about anything. But Sandy Wilder recently wrote, working through struggles. Whatever struggle you are experiencing is not bigger than you. It is a part of you that is struggling. You are infinitely bigger than any one part. Allow yourself to access the rest of you that is not struggling. Feel into the truth of the gift of grace. Receive it with deep gratitude. Friend, this is a high truth. A few sentences there is a high truth. I have found in my life, and I like to think less and less as I grow wiser and wiser and unlearn the wrong things, that the struggle that I have is not all of me. It's a part of me. But sometimes it seems like it grabs all of me and won't let go, right? Yeah. So allow yourself to access the rest of you that is not struggling. A former high school classmate of mine, he was a great student, a brilliant athlete, most valuable player on the basketball team, went off to college, got involved with some bad behavior. He got caught. He got convicted. He got sent to jail. In jail, he learned meditation. Learning meditation was what allowed him to get through his sentence. And he was telling me about this. While he was meditating, the others in jail did not know what he was doing, but they thought, I don't want to get close to him or have any part of this because he's got some weird stuff going on there, and I don't want to get mixed up with it. So he had actually a meditative cloak of protection. But he served his time. He had done wrong. He knew he had done wrong, but he changed in prison. He changed in prison, and that made all the difference in his life. I'm going to talk about a couple more people that spent some time in prison and had a change. Let me tell you about the Apostle Paul. You know the story of Paul. He was an angry man. He was from a pious conservative Jewish family. And he loved nothing more than to persecute the followers of Jesus. Well, he was traveling down the road, heading toward another city where he was hell-bent on persecuting more Christians. He got knocked off his high horse. He saw the light. In fact, he got blinded by the light, and he heard the message. He had a message from the Lord, and he became the greatest spreader of Christianity. As a follower of Jesus and a teacher, he was often put in prison. He founded many churches. He really took Christianity to the West, and the chances are we would not be here with our form of following the teachings of Jesus or the Protestants or the Catholics without him. One of the churches he founded was in the Greek city of Philippi, and there he met Lydia of Thyatira. Now, in those days, they probably called her Lydia, but if I said Lydia, I don't think anybody know what I'm talking about. Just think I was putting on airs, but Lydia. And what did she do? Do you remember? She was the seller of purple cloth. And who got to wear purple in those days? The royalty. She was most likely very prosperous. Now, she might have been married at one time, but we don't know of the man. But she had, at some point in her life, converted to Judaism, because Lydia was really thought of as a Gentile name. And then she became Jewish, and then she met Paul and was inspired and converted to Christianity and became a major leader in the early Christian church. So you had a person who had been in jail, he traveled, he had a change in his heart. He shared that with others, and one of whom was Lydia, a great player in the beginning of the Christian church. Paul was able to completely change his life. He attracted so many followers. He attracted the attention of the authorities. Now, one of my favorite writings of Paul was a letter to the Philippians, which he wrote while he was imprisoned in Rome. He was imprisoned in Rome because he was not worshiping the Roman gods and doing the Roman thing. He was preaching the truth of this new Christianity. And while suffering in prison, he wrote these words to the church in Philippi. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Folks, that's a powerful truth. I have found when I get caught up in the things of the world that I complain. I don't like this. I don't like that. And even though Jesus told us not to judge, it's so easy to judge and criticize and condemn. You know, I tell people, I come from a long line of judges. Not one of them was a lawyer or served on the judicial bench. We just think we know what we know is right, and you ain't doing right. And so, foo on you. Well, what we find is the thought gets us there, and it gets us all in a bind, and it gets us all worked up. This man is in jail, and he says, beloved, whatever is true and honorable and just and pure and pleasing, commendable, if there's any excellence or things worthy, think about these things. What are we thinking about most of the time? And I have to plead guilty sometimes to not thinking those things. And I remember talking to an editor of a newspaper once. I said, why is it so filled with negative stuff, crime, and really ugly stuff. And why is that on the news at 6 o'clock in the morning news and all that? And he said, all the attempts at having positive newscasts and positive newspapers have failed. There is something about this dark stuff that draws us to it. And then we think about it. And guess who that hurts? It's us for thinking that. And Paul is saying, don't do that. Don't do that. There's a story I remember hearing a long time ago. This one fellow goes to the doctor and he says, Doctor, whenever I do this, I have a great pain. And the doctor said, well, don't do that. Don't do that. Think about what's right and good and beautiful. And it will be pleasing to the soul and healing to the body. I want to tell you about one more person who knew the power of thought and how to work through struggles. And this was the great leader of South Africa and Nobel Prize winner Nelson Mandela. And he loved the poem Invictus. In his early life, he was committed to nonviolent protest, and then he went over to the other side. And he led a sabotage campaign. He was captured, tried and sentenced to prison. If I'm not mistaken, at one time they even sentenced him to death. Much of his prison sentence was spent on Robben Island. Now, in 1999, I was invited to represent the Unity Movement at the Parliament of the World's Religions, which was being held in Cape Town, South Africa. And I was invited to give a talk on unity there. I went to Robben Island. This is where Mandela had a great change of thought. During the Parliament of the World's Religion, there was boats going over to Robben Island, which is like Alcatraz, if you will. And many of these political prisoners were held there. And during the Parliament, they placed a peace pole there. I don't know if any of you have seen a peace pole, but in many different language, may peace prevail on earth. So they put that there. Robben Island is and was by then a national museum, and the guides of the museum were the former inmates there. So I got to see where they broke the rocks in the sun, and it was the white limestone type rock, and many of them went blind. Nelson Mandela did have eye problems the rest of his life. You were not allowed to use a flash photography when you would see him. But he had a major change of thought there. Part of it, I suspect, was from reading Invictus. But when he changed, one more thing I got to see his cell, just a small little cell with a stone or concrete floor. And he was having back issues. And so they took him to the doctor, who said he needs to have a mattress to lie on, not on this cold stone floor. And so the authorities fired the doctor. So this is how he was mistreated, but he had a change within, something about the power of thought, being invincible. And the other prisoners began to change their thought. And then the guards changed their thought. And eventually he was released from prison. And he changed an entire nation. Now, one of the things he set up with this truth and reconciliation, you know, with that apartheid regime and the horrors that the native people had to suffer under the hands of the white Europeans, there were those who wanted violence and retribution. And with this truth and reconciliation, you would have people coming together face to face. Sometimes a mother of someone whose child was murdered coming face to face with the murderer. And there was truth, and there was reconciliation, and there was peace. You know, he was greatly influenced by Martin Luther King, who was greatly influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. All of those had to make a decision about nonviolence, about love, about knowing that hate does not overcome hate and violence does not end violence. And that change inspired the world. Now, I know things are happening there again, and they're happening all over the world. And you and I need to take that truth forward. And we need to be peacemakers. I spent a lot of time down at Morehouse College, Martin Luther King's college, and the dean of the Martin Luther King chapel there said, you know, very few Christian ministers talk about peace on Sunday morning. That's what Jesus talked about. And one of the most powerful moments of that was when he was going to be arrested and taken to a mockery of a trial and put to death. And his followers tried to defend him, and they cut off the ear of a soldier, and Jesus healed that ear. He said, no more of this. Folks, now is the time, and we are the ones to say no more of this, no more of this. So I was inspired by Invictus as a kid who never heard of Nelson Mandela. But then I did hear him. And then I got to see him at the Parliament of the World's Religion welcome people from all around the world and talk about peace and talk about changing who we are from the inside out. When we change, the world changes. This poem, Invictus, by William Ernest Henley, changed so many lives. And I want to share it with you. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I want us to go into meditation now. And I want us to think about what it means to be master of my fate and captain of my soul. So in this moment, I don't know what struggles you're facing. You don't know what struggles I'm facing. But I know this. There is that part of us that is unconquerable. That part of us that cannot be defeated no matter what the struggle may bring. When we find that, we are unafraid. And we know from many authors and many writings, A Course in Miracles, you can choose fear or you can choose love. William Ernest Henley chose love. Myrtle Fillmore chose love. The Apostle Paul chose love. Nelson Mandela chose love. And you and I choose love. Out of the night that covers us, black as the pit from pole to pole, our souls are unconquerable. We choose love. Go deep within, beyond all the surface, all the stuff of life. And if you can, and if you're willing, just for a moment, look that ego monkey mind straight in the eye and say, I've already dealt with you, and I'm choosing love. I am unconquerable. no matter what the struggle. There are parts of me that are greater than the part that's struggling. And there is love. Right now, as your heart is beating, every beat says you are love. Every beat says you are greater than your struggles. Every beat says no matter what others are or are not doing around you, no matter what others are or are not thinking around you, love is the answer. And when love is the answer, you are the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul. And you find that peace that passes all understanding. Just rest in the stillness for a moment. Not trying to do anything or figure anything out. Just being love that you are. Master of your fate. Captain of your soul. And now quietly, gently, courageously, peacefully, humbly, lovingly, bring your place back to where you are experiencing this service with others around you and others being close electronically, but all of us being united in love. And know, we are the masters of our fate. We are the captains of our soul. And we are grateful, grateful, grateful. And so it is. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Dina. And Nerve and John, that was a beautiful message, meditation, and then an ending song. And we are so grateful for that. Now is the time in our service when we take our gifts of time, talent, and tithing and dedicate them to the unending, unlimited good that this ministry serves. We are ever reaching outward with the love and the joy that we know at the very center of our being and offering that good up to the universe. And the gifts that we share with this ministry helps us to make that stretch, to make that service possible. I invite you now to affirm with me our offering blessing together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And it returns to the giver, blessed and multiplied. and it is good. Gina?
Thank you, Claudia. I've just put some lyrics up in the chat box. This is All That Comes. Please feel free to join in. All that comes to me will be a gift to me. What a gift to me. All that comes to me will be a gift to me. Such a gift to me. Every moment, every day, I feel the power each and every time I say that every person, everything that comes my way can make me stronger and more loving in some way. All who come to me will bring a teaching for me. What a teaching for me. All who come to me will bring a teaching for me. Such a teaching for me. Every moment, every day, I feel the power each and every time I say that every person, everything that comes my way can make me stronger and more loving in some way. All that comes to me will be a blessing to me. What a blessing to me. All that comes to me will be a blessing to me. Such a blessing to me. Every moment, every day, I feel the power each and every time I say that every person, everything that comes my way can make me stronger and more loving in some way. All that comes to me will be a blessing to me. What a blessing to me. What a blessing to me. What a blessing to me.
Thank you, Dina. And before we go into our peace song, which the group here is going to gather together in the other room to do together, and then we'll conclude with our prayer for protection at the end of that. But before we do that, I wanted to let you know that next Sunday, August 1st, our guest speaker will be Reverend James Buchanan. And the following Sunday, it will be one of the big music people in Unity, Richard Mendiki. So we are looking forward to some special people coming up really soon. And now let's gather together for our peace song.
Lyrics are in the chat box. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as the one source, united all are we. Let us walk with each other
unmute?
We can do it from here.
Okay.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is,
And
and all
is
is
well.
well.
Yes.
Yay, God!